Talk us through some of those early signs when you were first dealing with bipolar.
I was not sleeping for 7 days, spun into mania. I was cleaning the streets of Chicago in an effort for land karma. I thought I was a vampire. I was under court order because I got physical with my dad. I could hardly remember my name. I remember not being able to count to 10. My boyfriend had already broken up with me. I became homeless, lost all my friends. I spun out of control.
What happens next? How quickly do you end up going into the psych ward?
Psych wards are not great places to be, and nobody believes your story. Clinical depression is something that is drastically different to a sadness that is a seasonal passing. This clinical depression is every single morning, afternoon, and night of my life. It's a process here in America to be mentally ill right now, and 1/5 of us are, and it's not being addressed.
There was a doctor that told you that you should never have children.
Dinah she'll be 7 in June, and then Charlie just turned 4 in February, and the twins will be 6 months on the 16th.
Hi, Alea, how's it going?
It's going well, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. So let's dive straight in. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and where you grew up?
Sure. I was born in 85 in Kansas to Dave and Nori. And I grew up on my grandpa's turkey farm, Hilltop Turkey Farm, just outside of McPherson, between McPherson and Lindsborg. So I went to high school and I was big into swing dancing and captain or co-captain of the cheerleading squad and big into theater. And then I went to college at Kansas State University and got a theater degree in 3 years. So graduated high school in 2003 and college in 2006. And then moved to the big city.
Amazing. And I know that your dad was a professional sports player, correct?
Yes, sir. Dave Hale, defensive tackle for the Chicago Bears. He used to be 6'8", but he shrunk a little bit.
What was it like growing up with a celebrity in the house?
A lot of people assume I was very wealthy, but back then they made about $20,000 a year. So they had second jobs and whatnot, but it was fun. He was always going and giving inspirational speeches, for the Gideons and whatnot. And I don't know, he'd come visit the playground and swing us around. It was pretty cool.
That sounds fantastic. And so at some point, did you feel like you knew there was something going on with your emotions, your feelings? Talk us through some of those early signs when you were first dealing with bipolar.
Sure. I think the definition of the word is called cyclothymia, which is minor mania and minor depression, is what I self-diagnosed myself with when I was 23 or 24 in Texas, right after I'd been married. And I started experiencing depression and mania and doing reckless things. Like, for instance, here, the tattoo on the back of my neck. I got that when I was 24 manic. And I after I calmed down, I was like, that wasn't normal. And so there was some moments in high school as well. So in high school, I would get overly emotional and my parents would chalk it up to female troubles or whatnot. And then in college, I was pretty successful, but it would come and go. But when I was on, I was on. You know what I'm saying? When things are going well, things are going really well to the point where you get a little delusions of grandeur and you spin out a little bit.
Right.
So I noticed that a few times throughout my life before I was officially diagnosed by a doctor.
Now, did your friends notice things too? Like, did you struggle making friends or tell us about how you kind of got on with people at school?
I've never struggled with making friends. I have a great time making friends. I have a hard time maintaining friendships and relationships because I am inconsistent or was before medication. And even now, I'm still not perfect by any means,
So when did you decide to actually go to the doctor? And when did it come to a place when you felt like it was time to address what you were going through?
I would love to say that I took myself. I did check myself in voluntarily the first time. I've been to the psych ward, asylum, mental health hospital, whatever you want to call it. I think 8 or 9 times now. We can go over the dates, but it's more than 7. and it spanned 2015 to 2021. And the first time I was cleaning the streets of Chicago, I was not sleeping for 7 days, spun into mania. I was cleaning the streets of Chicago in an effort for land karma. I thought I was a vampire or the Holy Spirit. I also thought Wes Anderson was filming me in a documentary a la the Mr. Fox movie. Anyways, I was pretty out there and not sleeping. And then I didn't show up for work 3 days, and a coworker came over, a little bit older coworker, a friend of mine. And I was dancing on a glass table that was my roommate's, and it broke. And she was like, no, you're a danger to yourself at this point. You're not doing anything but singing nonstop to the point where you're not breathing and could lead to a stroke, potentially, is what the doctor said eventually when I got there. But yeah, when I got there to a certain hospital, I don't think I can name it, I was in the ER and then checked myself in after they suggested it. And then there was a cavity search and a full body search, which I didn't see coming, I was like, who has the capacity to store things up there, in advance? I had a giggle about it, but it was uncomfortable. And there's definitely moments from my history in the hospital for 7 years that were more than just creepy from male workers, not even doctors or nurses, but just male workers, custodians, whatnot at the hospitals.
Oh, that sounds terrible. Let's back up.
When I was doing the cavity search, somebody walked in and he was a custodian and he said, whoops, wrong door. And then just stood there.
Wow.
For another 3 minutes. I was like, is this...
That's terrifying.
It was not cool. So that was about 15 minutes into my first experience. And I was like, oh, this is not what I thought I was signing up for. I thought I was signing up for a few therapy sessions over the course of a few days and some pills, not an unmarked time passage of days spent where you just don't know when you're going to get out.
Well, you've already been through enough with that. And then all of a sudden that happens. That's got to be terrifying.
Yes, sir.
Let's back up a little bit. So you said a lot there. You were talking about lots of sort of illusions that you were going through at one point. What happened until you said you were cleaning the streets for a week? Is that right? So let's back up a little bit there. Like, what was going on before and leading into that moment? Like, what was going through your head, and do you even remember that?
A lot of things had just transpired in my life. I'd had my dear friend Connor die of cancer that fall. I'd been broken up with by someone I really loved, and I'd never been broken up with before, so I had no way to regulate emotions. So yeah, there was a few things that happened in rapid succession. I was broken up with by a long-term someone that I loved. My friend died of cancer. My uncle was terribly sick. My family farm that I grew up in, that had been in my family for almost 100 years, was sold. And so I didn't have home anymore, which was a big deal for me. Anyways, all this spun together with a terrible Chicago winter. That winter of 2014 that led into 2015 was a really bad winter up here. And so I was just working 3 jobs, terribly miserable, taking the bus to work. And I just spun out. American Beauty, when you see the plastic bag floating and the guy's like, that's beautiful. I saw trash everywhere, and I was just like, you know what? That's something tangible that I can fix. I might not be able to control my life, but I can control this item getting put in the right place. I can move a item from point A to point B and make the world better.
So you remember having that thought, and you decided on a whim you're going to start cleaning everything.
I didn't. I just started picking things up out of curiosity and reading pieces, scraps of paper and whatnot. It started slowly, but then it was building to the point where at first, the first few days, I didn't care if anyone saw me or honked. But then the last few days, the first few days, I still cared a little bit how I was perceived by society and others walking around me. But then at the end of 7 days, I didn't care who saw. I didn't care if my ex-boyfriend saw, coworkers. I was doing it right by the Belmont brown, red, and purple line by Belmont and Clark in Chicago. And that's a huge hubbub. And people were just like, why is she getting, cigarette butts out of the ice, and putting them in the trash? What is she doing? So it wasn't great. It was not a good time, but happy to say that with medication, but we'll get to that soon enough.
Did you feel like you needed medication at that point? Like, what was your state of mind? Did you know there was something up with you, or did you feel like this is the right thing to do?
I knew I hadn't slept. I knew I hadn't eaten, and I knew my thoughts were quick. And I knew that I wasn't attending work, which was extremely unlike me. I've been working since I was 5 on the turkey farm. So 3 days of not showing up for work. I had a hunch that something was off, but I chalked it up to winter and sadness and that I would persevere. But I didn't. I just spun, almost cussed. I spun out of control. So it wasn't within, it was nothing that I could rein back in, if you will. I like to tell myself the first few years after it happened that I could have controlled it with, a shot of NyQuil and a good night's sleep and a sandwich, a Sammy or something. But I don't think a few nights sleep and a full belly and a call from mom or something inspirational would have brought me back to reality. I needed a shot of Thorazine in a few days, knocked out, apparently.
Were your friends able to connect with you at that point, or is anybody in touch with you, or you were completely isolated?
My family is far away in the southern part of the Midwest, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas. So they were far away. But like I said, I didn't show up for work. So a coworker of mine, who I won't name, showed up, and she assessed the situation. She called another friend of mine that was closer in age. She also said I was acting a little too strange for explanation of a reasonable nature. And then they called my cousin, who does live in the city, but I hadn't seen in a long time. And then when she showed up, I was like, something's really amok or amiss. She called my mother, and my mother flew in within the next day or two. So it happened pretty quickly, people rallying to my support and help, which I'm very thankful for.
Was it surprising to start seeing people turn up? How did you feel about that?
I felt great. But as the years passed, fewer and fewer people showed up. You know what I'm saying? And a psych ward patient, I've never at least gotten one, get well card, or here's a balloon, I'm sorry, your life is blown up. You know what I'm saying?
So your parents turn up, your coworker is there. What happens next? How quickly do you end up going into the psych ward?
Yes, sir. So my parents showed up a day or two after I got committed, but my two coworkers, my one coworker, my friend, and my cousin decided I needed to go. And my cousin drove me to the hospital waiting room. She spoke to the attendant, said that I was aggravated, said I was having rapid thoughts and speaking very quickly and speaking about grand things, government issues, how the banks own us, how China owns America. I was going on and on about systematic killing of people and mentally ill. I was going on and on and on. How to cure cancer, the astral, a lot of things. There's a lot of things going through a person that's crazy's mind. It's crazy. There's no other word for it.
It must be so interesting to look back now the way you can and talk about it like this, and we'll get to where you are now, but just the way you're able to talk about it in itself must be quite empowering, I think, for you.
Therapeutic, I would say, but it does obviously drudge up old feelings, but so far so good. I did bring out some visuals for you. Here's all of my paperwork for all the hospitals I went in.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So that's 7 years of paperwork about, all the things. And then I brought, my computer's resting on about 10 moleskin journals, but I brought some other journals from ever since high school or college. There's about a journal a year. So I've done a pretty good job of recording what has happened to me. Obviously, there's bigger gaps of missing days. Like every day isn't recorded when I'm manic, but a lot of the experience is recorded.
Well, that's so amazing. You can put that down so you can refer to that. And is it a therapeutic for you to be able to write and read? Do you ever read that stuff back?
Well, actually, I'm illiterate. No, I'm just kidding. That wasn't funny. I do read it back, and it is helpful, and it is therapeutic, and it is good for me. That was just a first experience at the hospital. I've had many more, and I was in a group home, and I rode the short bus, and one time I was under court order and had, I might be getting ahead of myself, but handcuffs chained to a leather belt. I was under court order because I got physical with my dad in a hospital.
Wow.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good. He was trying to bring me in. This was the third or fourth time I was checked in. So I knew what was up and I didn't want to go that now. I was going to punch and kick and get out of there. So he took me in, told me we were going for spider bites. And then I was like, well, let me grab a smoke real quick. Cause I figured once I was in, I wasn't coming out for a few days or weeks. And I went to grab a smoke and he was like, no. And he grabbed my arm real gruffly because he thought I was running. So he grabbed my arm and kind of picked me up by the neck though. So I couldn't breathe. So we went down this hallway and he's 6'8". So he's a big boy, but I'm 5'11" and I'm not small. And he had me by the neck and the other arm under my chest. And I just rocked forward and he fell off my body and almost broke his neck. And so then I was under court order from Father's Day. It was Father's Day, June 21st, 2016, all the way to October 5th, 2016. I was under court order for about 5 months, living in a group home and riding the short bus. And it was incredibly embarrassing. My father even got a restraining order against me for a period of time. We're on great terms now, I'm happy to report, but our relationship and my relationship with every person has gone through the mother bleeping ringer because of this. And
I'm sure.
not fair. It's not fair.
So let's go back to so you went into the first psych ward. Did you feel like that was the right place for you at the time? Did you think, obviously you had a bad experience as you touched on when you first got there?
I thought I was Miss America or the Statue of Liberty with 2 hospital gowns wrapped around me in a twisty fashion, like the Statue of Liberty green. They were green. And I remember thinking that. Those were the thoughts I was having the first time. I wasn't necessarily thinking I should be there or shouldn't be there. I was on another realm, dude.
I gotcha. Yeah. So how long was that first stay?
Yes, it was February 15th through the 21st of 2015. So it was right after Valentine's Day because didn't have anyone special. So that really ramped things up.
So how many weeks was that, or how many days was that you were in there for the first time?
7, 15th
7 days.
to the 21st.
Okay, so just clarifying.
They
Okay.
initially told me 2 to 3 days. So by the 4th and 5th day, I was like, but what hoops do I have to jump through exactly? You know?
Yeah. So what happens after that stay or towards the end of that stay then? What's going through your mind and where do you go next?
To the end of that stay, you are usually checked out into someone's care or someone's observation. There's lots of paperwork. And then you do an outpatient intakes appointment that is usually scheduled for, if not before you leave, then immediately after. And if you don't arrive at that, then there's repercussions. Medications are prescribed and you pick up immediately after. And then you're medicated, and then you're seeing the psychologist, and then you're jumping through hoops to try and get a therapist. But, you know, the healthcare system in America is total S word. It's totally stupid. So it's a process here in America to be mentally ill right now. And 1/5 of us are, and it's not being addressed in any way besides negative judgment. Nothing's being done to be proactive about it.
Yeah, I agree. There's not enough attention on it for sure. So how do you want to talk about the next phase of your the difficulties you were having? Was it in and out of hospitals through that period, or do you want to sort of walk us through the next phase of what happened?
Sure. So I got out. I got out on the 21st of February, 2015. And then I was immediately, my parents took me to one of my jobs. My coworker was also my flatmate and my housemate. And he immediately took me under the risers at Blue Man Group and told me that I was no longer welcome at the house. So I immediately became homeless. As I said, my boyfriend had already broken up with me. I became homeless, lost all my friends, proceeded to go to my next place of business, which was Township, as a waitress. And they fired me. I was only there on Saturdays for brunch. And then I went into my other job, which was waiting tables more frequently. And they also fired me. And so I stayed with friends for 2 weeks. My parents said, if you can get it together, you can stay. And I couldn't quite get it together. So I went home for about 6 weeks. and then came back. I was able to get my job at Blue Man Group back and lived with my friend that died of cancer. I lived with his two sisters for about 6 months. They took me in the kindness of their heart, even though they knew I was, that shit. And then what happened? Okay, so then up until May 2016 to May 2016, all the way slingshot to October 2016 was another prolonged episode and repercussions of and hospital stays of my outpatient doctor psychologist took me off medication after a while. She said they might have been too strong. So I was off medication when I went crazy again, which isn't surprising. I was off medication for 3 months and things have been going well, but then things weren't. They just stopped. And I had just fallen in love with somebody, and he ran a radio station. And sometimes when you break up or fall in love or any big transition in life can upset or set off mania. So that was till October 2016. And then again, December 17th when I was pregnant. And then again, right after I gave birth to Dinah in 2018, the summer of June, 3 times then. And then last but not least, right after I gave birth to my son, 2021.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite the adventure.
Yeah, you can say that again.
Did out of curiosity, every time you went in, was this government assisted, or was it something your parents had to pay for, or how did that work out?
Government assisted. Parents were initially made to pay for it, but with paperwork and showing up and answering questions and showing that I was actually there and all this stuff, I don't think I paid. I know I didn't, and I don't believe my parents did for any of the stays. But I did pay for medication and therapy and all these other things. That's a good question. Maybe I'll come back to that one.
And if your stays during that period while you were in these psych wards was like a roller coaster ride, was it always down, or were there ups and downs? Like how were your emotions? How were you kind of mentally through that period? And I also want to know, like, at what point you decided to say enough was enough, like, and turn things around and start fixing everything.
To answer the last question first, I didn't willfully choose at any point in time to suddenly make things better. It was due to medication, manifestations, meditation, prayer, and just good old-fashioned daydreaming, a lot of religion, and a lot of thinking. I'm really glad if anybody in my family was to get this, I'm glad it was me. I'm strong enough to handle it. I'm glad it wasn't my nieces or my sisters or my cousins, So that got me through a lot of dark periods, was just thinking, if it had to be anyone, if this mentally ill gene, whatever it is, I'm sorry, I don't even know, is passed down to anyone, I'm kind of glad it was me because I'm a tough cookie. But it definitely broke me along the way. And there were times in the psych ward where I'm pretty sure I was raped. There's times in the psych ward where orderly check-ins would come in at night and pleasure themselves in the corner. And there's a lot of instances where psych wards are not great places to be, and nobody believes your story when you come out or when you're in it. Like I told a nurse and she kind of laughed, but looked at me knowingly and gave me a golf pencil and a piece of paper to fill it out. And then I handed it to her and she said, I'll file it. And I said, actually, I'll keep it. And anyways, that's a darker period of time. But while I'm in the psych ward, I don't feel much of anything. After the Thorazine shot and all the medications and the little paper cup and the name calling by the medication door and everything, you don't feel much of anything. You don't think much. I could hardly remember my name. I remember not being able to count to 10 or spell 10 or write the numbers right. I lost all cognitive thought. It was hard to structure sentences. It was hard to even exist there because the bleach and the clothing was so itchy. You'd get rashes. You couldn't comb your hair, so your hair would get matted like a cat's. I couldn't wear my contacts, so I couldn't see jack diddly. So I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. I mean, it smelled like Clorox and piss. It's not the whole system needs to be redone here in America,
Yeah.
at least. I don't know about abroad, but we're not treated well with respect, and we don't have a lot of rights when we're in there, and nobody believes us when we get out.
Yeah, that sounds dreadful. But you did touch on earlier that you said, you looked at meditation, you tried meditation, you looked at religion. So there were some things there that you tried, and was that you kind of give that
Credit? Yes.
direction, that credit to the medication? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, mostly to the medication, I would definitely say. You need to be on medication. I sometimes the little bad guy or bad girl in my head tells me you don't need that, like but it's been proven over 7 years when I've gone off it, whether of my own volition or being told that, it's not the right one. I mean, for 7 years I was sorting through olanzapine and thorazine and all these different medications to the point where you would change it every month. That summer of 2016, they changed my medication every single month. And so every month I was like a hangover from being taken off what I was taken off of, and then having to readjust to whatever the new thing was. So it took 7 years to find the right prescriptions, and it's aripiprazole and lamotrigine for me. So that has been the last 4 years. I take a pill in the morning and 2 at night, and that with believing in God and having family and friends that a very few stuck around, but I was able to win a few back. That with meditation and eyeing and just trying to stay now in time, here in space, and realize that's behind me, and I can create whatever I want to create for my future within reason, as
Unbelievable.
long as I take my medication.
Yeah. So once you figured out, so you figured out yourself, this is the right for me. Like your mind changed, your whole body changed. Tell us about that kind of transformation from when you started taking that medication, then something changed in you, and then how did that feel?
It felt great. It was I was being observed in my last hospital here in Chicago by a doctor. Can't remember his name, but I shouldn't say it anyways. He figured out the right prescription in 2021. I was there March 2021. I gave birth to my son in February, and I had bad postpartum. And so I went in, and he prescribed me the right medication. And for 4 years now, I've been in remission, recovery, whatever you want to call it.
So with the medication you're on, when you were feeling better, were you pregnant at that time? Or how did tell us about your pregnancy and how that fit
Sure.
into your new frame of mind?
I had heard that olanzapine caused body deformations. So I went off of it for my first 2 pregnancies, and I went crazy. I accidentally got kidnapped and almost sold into prostitution under a gun in Des Moines.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. That's also when my dad filed that restraining order because I was cussing him out. That was that period of time when I was pregnant the first time with Dinah. I was pregnant, let's think here, August 2017 to June 2018, and in the psych ward, December 2017. 2017, yeah.
Okay.
And so anyway, I went off of it during her pregnancy, and after 5 months of being off of it during the pregnancy, I went crazy. And then I think they put me on something. And then during Charlie's pregnancy, I also went off stuff, and I also went crazy, and then went super duper crazy after giving birth.
Okay.
It's a long story.
So you're a parent, and you were still having these episodes and these difficult moments. That must have been really difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, now was that the same? Was that the same sort of mindset as before, where you weren't really? Well, I say mindset. You weren't really present, like you weren't really aware, like in the same. No, you just weren't.
Good judgment kind of went out the window,
Okay.
and I have brought up the right way, but good judgment went out the window. Yeah, I was just doing dangerous things, talking to dumb people, getting into cars I shouldn't have gotten into, getting off the Greyhound bus in Des Moines in the first place, and like being like, I'm going to see what's going on in this town, when I should have stayed on it and gotten to Chicago. Just there's a lot of things I should have done different, but hindsight's 2020, and I'm not wearing my glasses, so you figure things out.
I gotcha. That's wild to hear you talk about that. And so I know that there was a doctor that told you that you should never have children. Was this before you were pregnant, or during your pregnancy, or when were you told that?
Um, it was alluded to maybe the second time. And then I also knew that mentally ill mothers, just from stories and movies and stuff, weren't perceived to be fit. And I would say my pregnancies were bad, but after being pregnant and after, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks after giving birth or popping it out, things got back to normal-ish for sure. But being pregnant and postpartum throws at least my mental illness and my bipolar disorder into a tailspin. Did I answer that question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you did. You did. I'm just because it's so much to unpack, and I'm just trying to pick on. I want to get through to so many because you've got so many great things going on. I don't want to be spending too much time in these difficult moments. But
if it was a whole set, I couldn't buy it or afford it. But yeah.
So okay, so you've had 2 children. Your last stay at the psych ward,
I actually have 4 children now. I just gave birth to twins in December.
Congratulations, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, truly beautiful. Yeah, so wonderful, and so that's such a transition from where you are now to where you were, right? Like how, like that part there. Let's talk about your kind of your recovery, your build up, the part now where things just really started to look much better for you. How did that happen? I want to understand where. Obviously, medication's been a big part of it, but
Sure.
The meditation, the religion. Talk to us about the things that you still had to dig deep on and find in yourself to get through. I want to learn about that.
Sure. There was a poster in the group home that said, you can either make yourself miserable or make yourself strong. They both take the same amount of effort. And that really stuck with me. Like I said, I almost want to say it wasn't a pivotal moment of change, but it was right after I started taking the medication. There was a decided noticeable change.
You're doing great now from what I can tell. And obviously medication's key to everything. And we take it day by day, I'm sure. But from what I can tell, you've come a really long way. And I'm trying to learn where that first up ramp moment was for you, in terms of really pulling things together, holding things down, and having the strength to hold it all together and not fall into some of those wild cyclones that you've been in before. Tell us about that kind of first period when you say enough's enough, essentially.
Yeah. I wish I could say it was one moment that I said enough's enough, but I said that multiple times over 7 years. I said enough is enough. Like, I can't take this anymore. But I didn't have the tangible resources yet. I hadn't put together all the puzzle pieces of a formula with all the right variables that would get me the end conclusion that I have now. So like I said, what with medication and manifestation, specifically the Nikola Tesla 369 method, meditation, that was manifestation. So meditation, I like to do the I-ing and just letting your thoughts wander and then coming back to it. Religion, I'm Baptist, so I believe in God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Family and the few friends that I retained. So it was a combination of variables that made a formula that worked out after 7 years. But it took me a while. And a lot of bumps and bruises and scrapes along the way and embarrassing moments. My God, have I embarrassed myself and said the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time. Woo.
I'm curious about the 369 and the I-ing. Like, tell us about, again, you've been drawn to that or somebody's put that in front of you. Like, these are the parts I'm really curious about. And I think listeners will want to know more about as well, is that when they're in a dark spot, they're finding things difficult. What drew you there? What made that stick for you? Why is that important to you?
Yeah, I-ing, A-I-N-G, is a part of meditation. So you let your mind wander, you close your eyes, you sit up nice and straight, you sit crisscross applesauce, put your fingers out, take 20 minutes of your day and really let your mind just go. And then you let your mind wander, think about all the horrible things that happened to you, and then bring it back on I-ing. and then think about something good and just let your mind wander and explore all these things. And you'll come to a lot of new conclusions when you allow yourself to think of things from a different perspective without having a screen in front of you or some sort of box to look at. So that's meditation. As far as Tesla 369 method, that is just writing down what you want as if you already have it 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the afternoon, and 9 times at night. And it has just been a proven theory. I mean, Tesla was kind of a big deal. Not the car company, not that, but so that helped. Good old-fashioned daydreaming. I've always been big into daydreaming, which can lead to mania and delusions of grandeur. But within reason, daydreaming can really, if you can see yourself morphing and changing and you can see the end result you want, you can start to put it out there in the universe, ask for it, and you'll start to get it. Because your mind, it's the law of attraction. You get what you attract. And if you ask for something good, you don't always get what you ask for, obviously, but there are things you can do, positive things, like I just mentioned, that can get you closer to where you want to go faster, I think. For instance, I wanted to do improv acting at Second City here in Chicago. So for about 6 months leading up to my first class, which I didn't know I was going to be able to make time for, what with all these kids and everything. But I made it work, and I made a 4-hour class work for 2 terms. And so, for instance, with that one specifically, there's some other ones that are bigger, heavy hitter ones that I won't divulge because they're a little embarrassing to tell your like hopes and dreams, the big ones. But this one, I just wrote down 3 times in the morning. I am an improv actor at Second City. I am an improv actor at Second City. Kind of like when you're wearing the dunce hat and you have to write on the chalkboard, but it's something positive that you want, and you think and you write it down as if you already have it is the key. And also with prayer, I mean, there's parts of the Bible that say if you pray, you must believe you already have it, and then it shall be yours. So prayer is manifestation in its own way if you're willing to get touchy-feely about religion, which most people aren't. It's more cut and dry, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to religion. Like you're praying, You're not manifesting anything. That's too new age or touchy-feely, but it works for me. So, hey.
That's great. So to clarify, you'd write down the same thing 3 times, and then the same thing 6 times, and then the same things 9 times. So you just...
Yeah, you can Google it. It's a great method.
Okay, yeah, that's new to me. I'm familiar with the Tesla 369 idea, but I didn't know that's how it was also used as an exercise. I just want to find out about the part where you were told, you can't be a mother if you've got bipolar, or a good mother, or I weren't sure exactly how that came along. And then you said, "Oh, just watch me. Here, let's show you how this is done." And being able to sort of defy that.
Well, I knew what a good mother was because I have an excellent mother, and I have 2 big sisters that also raised me, and sister-in-laws that are great mothers as well, and cousins, and yada, 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 yada. I've been surrounded by great mothers my whole life. I knew what it was. I knew it was consistency and showing up every day. Is it being perfect every moment? No, it's showing up and trying your darndest. And I knew I had that capability within me. I just needed to get myself out of my own way, basically, and not focus on myself or focus on the negative, but focus on what I knew I could do. So my brother, Aaron, once told me, don't focus on what you don't want to be, focus on what you do want to be. And he's very religious. So he would say, don't focus on, this is giving away a little bit, but don't focus on being like dad with his anger. Focus on being Christ-like. Focus on what you want to be. Don't focus on how you don't want to be part of the past. Or I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. It does. Okay. Did you carry fears into motherhood, or do you still carry fears around the bipolar diagnosis?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wish I could say I live carefree, but there's always something in the back of my mind that's like, you could lose it all like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what if these tariffs make it impossible to get medication? You know what I'm saying? Then I'm on a funny farm and they're doing T4 projects on me, like in Germany. Like, there's a lot going through my mind as far as stressors here right now. But yes, there's stressors about being a mother, but there was definitely a turning point. It was after I gave birth to Dinah, but it didn't hit home until after Charlie. But it was after I gave birth to Dinah. My partner came to the psych ward I was staying at in Kansas, and took my daughter and took her across state lines. And he had my approval and everything. But I remember thinking I could never get her back. That could have been my last kiss, So anyways, that's always a possibility. And that's when I thought, you know what? Fuck it all. Like, I'm going to show everyone, in spite of it all, and to spite them maybe a little bit too, I'm going to do this, and to show myself I can. I've had good representations of what I should do. I knew you could kind of fake it till you make it. And now I'm in the swing of things, and it's so easy. It's so easy. You just got to show up for your kids, love them, respect them, draw a few boundaries in the sand. They're not your best friends. They're your kids, you know. Make them some banana bread. Try not to yell. Try and stay patient.
Mm-hmm. As being a mum helps you better understand yourself?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's made me better understand how it's okay to be flawed, and how we all are flawed, and not to beat yourself up too much about any one thing, especially something that, happened quickly and you didn't have time to think about your reaction in advance. So to just kind of give yourself some grace and cut yourself some slack. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think people misunderstand most about bipolar, especially being a bipolar mother? Like, is there any misunderstandings that you think are attached to that?
Yeah. I love it when people, somebody in my improv class was like, I'm going to be bipolar. And he pretended to be, they went, ah, and they went, ah. And I was like, no. Bipolar, by definition, is a series of continuous, whatever the right word would be, depression, clinical depression. I love everybody with mental illness now. It's all like socially, like, media accepted. So everyone's like, I'm depressed. And I don't want to be like, no, you're not, because they probably are. But clinical depression is something that is drastically different to a sadness that is a seasonal passing. This clinical depression is every single morning, afternoon, and night of my life before medication, with at least bipolar is, I'm rapid cycling. The bipolar is depression continual with at least 2 to 3 episodes of mania that have lasted more than 4 days. That's the definition of bipolar 1, at least. Bipolar 2 is a little, from what I remember, my understanding, a little less crazy, a little less mania, and a little less depression. Minor mania, minor depression.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, I don't think many people know the details of that. So
yeah, it's not just I'm happy, I'm sad within a 20-minute span. It can be, but more often than not, it's clinical depression, and then ramping up. Sometimes the season changes. A lot of time when spring hits and the weather hits, people will ramp up into mania.
Gotcha. And you said you had 4 children.
Yes.
How old are your oldest children?
Dinah she'll be 7 in June, and then Charlie just turned 4 in February, and the twins will be 6 months on the 16th.
So, that's amazing. Now, your oldest kid.
I give a shout out to my partner, Scott. He's the most consistent person I've ever met. So he's not perfect, and he's not always, he doesn't always show up for me in the right way, but he tries, and he makes a good living, and he shows up for work every day, and he's consistent, which I'm not. So I'm very thankful that I met him. And I'm very thankful he's the father of my children, because I know that if anything happens to me, they'll be honky-dory and well taken care of.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, how did you guys meet?
We met, right after my court order ended in 2016. I took the train from Lawrence to Chicago in October, got a job immediately in Bucktown, went down the alley, found a bar, web pub, and he was shooting darts. And I saw him, and I was like, he'll do just fine. And he's done just fine ever since.
And you guys hit it off right away, or it took a while?
I think he walked over. I smiled real big at him first to let him know, like, you may approach the bench, you know? And then he came over and bought me a beer and told me to guess his name. And I said, Scott. He said, guess my last name. And I was like, okay, can I have a clue? And he was like, it's really generic. And I said, Johnson. And anyways, I ended up guessing his middle name because it was the same as my father's. So I don't know what kind of wavelength I was on that night, but I guessed his full name. And I'm not kidding. Isn't that weird?
That is different. Yeah, something that you aligned there somehow.
They are keyed into another level. I really genuinely believe that. Just a little bit, like a little more maybe intuitive or perceptive.
Let's talk about your book. I know you've got one that's out and you've got one that's coming out. By the way, congratulations. People talk about writing books all the time, and they put it back to being the 10th thing, the 15th thing that they're going to get to, and they never get to it. But you've done it. You've written a book. So tell us about the first book you wrote, first of all.
Sure. So this is it. It's called Grippy Sock Girl by Alea. It's on Amazon. It's kind of hard to find because actual grippy socks for babies pull up when you search it. So the next book had a better title, but we'll get to that. So this is my first book, and there's a lot of mistakes in it. And it's called Grippy Sock Girl because the generation Gen Z has a euphemism for psych ward stays, which is grippy sock vacation. So it's a euphemism for staying in an asylum or whatever. So I named it Grippy Sock Girl because, you know, I was kind of pretending I was like the superhero of grippy sock people. So yeah, it's a book about all of it, you know.
So that covers your life, or just the part when, like, how much of that does it span your life? Is it about
that would cover the first few months up until my first commitment,
okay,
and then go all the way to about a year ago. So about 7 years it spans. And then the new book is an adaptation of the first book. So you could call it a second edition, but it has about 10 to 15,000 more words. And it was properly edited by a professional. And it even has page numbers, which I forgot to do in the first one, which is it was very freshmonic, you should say. And so my second book is sophomoric. And it's called Crazy in Chicago. And it's, I think, a better version. So it'll be available tomorrow on Amazon. Crazy in Chicago. The Kindle version is already available on Amazon, which I'm very proud of as of yesterday. And that's the book that I'm adapting into a musical, which will be hopefully not a one-woman show. I'm planning, because everyone makes fun of one-woman shows, planning for 3 other cast members next year. And I've got some music picked out from the radio, so I have to get the rights for it. It's all sorts of fun stuff. So I'm just working to help myself better understand myself, help other people better understand what's going on in their lives, and help friends and family members of those that are nutso to accept them, better understand how it's really hard for us to reach out. You know, it's embarrassing. You have to do the same thing over and over again, be there for us over and over and over again. And it's got to be trying. It's got to be hard. It's got to be hard. And we push you guys away, and we embarrass you, and we call you names, and we get mad, and we do things. It's not for the faint of heart, loving someone that's mentally ill, and my heart goes out to you. It's not easy. But if you were to say, I want my story to end, I would tell you this. I would say that the sun comes out tomorrow, and one of these days the sun's going to come out, and you're going to be so thankful to your younger self that you stuck around and the sun did come out. And this book of your life is not over until you say it's over. So the sun will come out tomorrow, and this chapter might have ended badly, but you're negating in your mind currently that there are more chapters to your book. But you have to choose. It's a choose your own adventure, you know? So that's what I would say to someone that's thinking about just being done with this whole process. And I would also tell them that I don't think this is the end. So even if you're done here, you might not be done totally. So you might want to evaluate your thought process. But that's just my opinion.
I think you are a mind reader, because I was going to ask you that next about your advice to people that are going through something similar. And you've touched on that. So I don't know how you figured that out, but Wow, that was powerful. And congratulations. I think putting something to music or making fun of some of the difficulties or bringing more people around to see what's actually going on in mental health and what you're dealing with is such a healthy way to approach it. More people can have access to it. So I
That's the
really
exact
admire.
word. I'm trying to make it approachable and not so scary and taboo of a topic. It's happening. There's nothing we can do to stop it. So let's do what we know to do to make it better. We need facilities. We need doctors. We need things to reintroduce us to society. We need better everything. I don't think there is this, but I'd love, how there's like caucuses here in America. I don't think there is like a caucus that represents the mentally ill, but I really wish there was. There, I said it.
And that was going to be my next question as well, is like, what needs to change based on, your experience, your knowledge, your wisdom?
Yeah, that's what I would say, because I Googled it. It said 1/5 of Americans are mentally ill. So I'm sure that number is pretty much similar worldwide. We need, we need to destigmatize the word. We need to make it more approachable. We need more people like you to interview people like me to get better single-handed accounts to show that every story is different. We need better facilities, better specifically outpatient into society programs, because there's nothing right now. And here in Chicago, a mayor or two ago, they cut down every facility that helped mentally ill people. And then we're surprised when all these crazy people are out on that same corner where the hospital closed or where the mental health facility closed, and they're trying to buy this or trying to buy that or trying to self-medicate. And you're surprised on what day that they went crazy when you shut down the nut house. So yes, I would say that America needs a caucus for the mentally ill, just like they do for every underrepresented group of people. Sorry, my son's trying to eat blue frosting right now off the cake.
That's all right. We're on the tail end of this thing now. I'm going to ask you if you could define love. I'm going to throw this at you randomly, kind of coming at you from the side.
Love's
here.
A choice. I've actually thought of this before. Love is a choice. I don't think it is a feeling that can come and go, but it is an action verb. It is a choice. You choose to do it. I choose to love you. I choose to show up for you, no matter what. Love is, to me, an action verb.
That's beautiful. Alea, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Give people a chance. Just because they're crazy doesn't mean that they're incapable of doing great things. And, motherhood is a great thing. So we should not be denied that right. We should be given more help in all regards, especially mentally ill mothers here in America specifically, to succeed, because we are very capable of doing it, and we can do it handedly if given the right variables.
Well, Alea, you're a true hero, and I thank you so much for spending time sharing your story. And I know you've got kids waiting to.
I do.
You have got to take care of, so you got to go and do your thing. And I just want to congratulate you on doing such a great job of turning things around and being such an inspiration.
Thank you very much.